big day for the Florida Tennis Podcast. We have the legendary, the incomparable Rick Macci, who always brings the energy, always brings the funny, and the wisdom. So it's a great combo. So Rick, thank you for being here. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's raining, so it works out even better. So I'm fired up and ready to go.
That is awesome. Now, Rick, you've been coaching tennis for over 40 years. You're the founder of the Rick Macci Tennis Academy, located in beautiful South County Regional Park in Boca Raton. It is a USDA public park facility, which is awesome. You inspire players, both young and old, and nurture competition through your Battle of Boca tournaments. Now, you got to give me a second to go through your, well, it takes longer than a second, but your accomplishments. Just please let me do this for a minute. Youngest ever USPTA Hall of Fame inductee. Coached 5 players ranked #1 in the world. 2 players ranked #2 in the world. 8 Olympic gold medalists. 12, I'm getting tired just reading these. 12 players ranked top 10 in the world. 52 Grand Slam singles titles. 86 Grand Slam titles in singles, doubles, and mixed. 123 Little Mo titles in singles, doubles, and mixed. 346 USTA junior national titles since 1985. All 4 junior Grand Slam titles in singles and doubles. 7-time USPTA Coach of the Year. USPTA Florida Hall of Fame, Greenville, Ohio, for those of you who don't know, Hall of Fame in tennis and basketball. Let's not forget that. And the legendary coach of Venus and Serena Williams, made famous in the King Richard movie, with all those beautiful pictures behind you with Serena and John Bernthal. We'll get to that later, and Will Smith. But let me hit you with a question, Rick. So they want to hear you, not me. Let me start by asking, of all of those accomplishments, do any of them stand out, or what are you most proud of, or are they all equal to you?
Well, I never, first off, great question. No one's ever asked me that.
Okay.
They're probably all the same. I don't really look backwards. Now that I'm getting older and you have time to reflect, a lot of people have asked me about the stuff that I've accomplished or whatever, and I still feel I'm in the bullpen warming up. I got a lot of good players. I got a lot still to accomplish. But obviously, if I had to single out one situation, it would be taking that phone call in 1991 at Greenleaf Resort from Richard Williams. He told me, Rick, if you come to Compton, I promise I won't get you shot. Okay. Why I decided to go, Adam, I had no idea. I never went and saw a player. They either came to the academy or I saw them at a junior tournament, and I just decided, I had Capriati 2 years before that. She was gone. And I don't know. I went out there, and obviously looking back, I'm probably the only human being on earth that can say my best vacation ever was Compton, California, so that would probably be the best. Anything that I've accomplished as far as people winning titles or that type of stuff, as you know, it takes 2 to tango. You got to have the thoroughbred to win the Derby. Sure, I extract greatness and I try to get the most out of everybody, no matter what their ceiling is. But if it'd be one thing, it'd obviously be, diving into the situation with Venus and Serena. And it was a mystery, but at the end of the day, we changed history.
Well, it's an incredible story, Rick, and we're going to get to it. But you kind of segued into my next question, which is when you look at Venus Williams, Serena Williams, Maria Sharapova, Jennifer Capriati, Andy Roddick, Sophia Kenin, just to name a few, what is a common thread that runs through greatness?
First off, another great question and an easy answer. Okay, just brutal competitors. That's the X factor. Listen, they hit the ball different. They held the racket different. I had to teach them all a little different, even though I teach a lot of the girls the same way. Cut the court, take the ball early, hit on the rise, give you a surprise, tear out your eyes. I teach a lot of the girls the same way. But it would be that, and that's what I try to do as a coach, try to get them to become a better competitor. Everybody's competitive, but will you die like it's your last breath? And that's what I try to instill to get more out of people. So that's really the only common denominator with all those players. But I had that, Adam, with people went to college and they became All-Americans, or people that got to 100 in the world, or whatever they became. That would be the only real common thread. And I think anybody listening, that should be the role of every coach and parent. Just make your player the best competitor they can be and don't go away.
Well, Rick, you've kind of segued into my next question, which is when you compare the feeling of molding great professional tennis players with the feeling of molding a player into a successful college athlete and a successful, productive adult, are those the same? Do you get the same feeling, the same joy from doing both of those things?
Absolutely. People ask me all the time, they go, who's your favorite student of all time? I get that a lot, and people think I'm going to say Venus, Serena, Capriati, Roddick, Sharapova, Meskina, Pierce, Kenin, Rude. I coach Rude too. Christian Rude, not Casper. I coach his dad, and they think it's going to be one of them. But the way I feel is who's ever on the other side of the net, that hour, that minute, that second, that's my favorite student. And I think anybody who's worked with me, they feel that. And that's how you extract greatness, But I get the same enjoyment even if I was giving you a lesson. I teach adults. I was teaching a number one 80-year-old in the country. He was a lefty. He hit the ball like Jimmy Connors, and he wanted me to teach him the ATP forehand. He goes, I haven't ever hit topspin in my life, so I'm on the clock. This could take, I got to hurry up and learn this. And see, I just love helping people. I'm more of a life coach than a tennis coach. And so when I'm on the court, that's where I'd rather be more than any place, is doing my thing, because I know I have a gift and I can expedite the learning curve.
Well, that is awesome. You're an inspiration, Rick, and an inspiration to me was Jim Martz. And I need to talk a little bit about Jim with you. And I don't want to get too emotional right now, but we lost him on December 30th, 2023. This is Jim. He was the founder, creator, publisher. Personally, I think you and Jim had a number of things in common that made you such close friends, both from the Midwest, both true to their word, both just happy and appreciative for what they had, not always looking for what they could get, but really just happy with themselves, happy with their lives, and happy to pay it forward to the next generation. I know Jim loved you and respected you immensely, loved going out to the academy and talking to you and spending time with you. Can you talk a little bit about Jim, what he meant to Florida tennis and what he meant to you personally, if you don't mind?
Yeah, no, listen, first off, he's larger than life. He is Florida tennis. It could be Jim Martz tennis. I mean, you got to understand, his heart and soul and promoting the game, and everything he's done was beyond iconic. And, I understand, because I've known Jim ever since back in 1988, back at Greenleaf. We go way back and went down the Yellow Brick Road, and he was there in the Miracle and the Orange Groves at Greenleaf, and all the way to South County Park where I'm at now. And he's seen every step of my career, and everybody that I've worked with, and so on and so forth. And the one thing I love more than anything about Jim, steady Eddie. You knew what you're going to get. Mr. Consistent. He just appreciated so much what he had and maybe not what he didn't have. And more people should take that as their playbook to lead their life, because a lot of people, always in a great mood. And anytime we did an interview, it was like a machine. He would, at the end, he'd say the same thing, Rick, good stuff. It was so funny. So what I'd start to do when I got done, before he'd even say it, I'd go, Jim, good stuff. He goes, that was good stuff. Because one thing I like about Jim, he'd bring out his tape recorder, ask the question, and just let it roll. It was interrupted. He didn't have to edit anything. He just let me do my thing, and we just clicked. And I love the guy to death. He's so appreciative of everything. And no, it's like, you got to understand, he came out all the time, and he did everything from his heart. And I'm a very good judge of people. I evaluate talent. for a living, not just tennis players, people, you know, and he was cream of the crop.
Well, there was a mutual love there, I can tell you. And that segues now into a book. I'm going to go through some of your books if you don't mind. This is the book that you wrote, one of the books you wrote with Jim Macci, Magic. What was the process like of writing this excellent book with Jim, and what's a great big picture takeaway for the reader of this book?
Well, for Jim being able to read all my writing, we should have renamed the book Mark's Magic. I mean, this was brutal. You know, that was my kind of first rodeo doing a book. And I'm actually better at them, as you probably figured out. I can talk into the phone and do text messages. I'm better at talking because it's all in my head than even emailing. So when it came to writing stuff down, okay, I started writing initially, and Jim and I spent more time because he was reading Chinese. I mean, most doctors couldn't read my writing. So then we figured out, just come on out and I'll start talking. And he recorded it. And we were off to the races. But there was only one person I would have done this with, and it was Jim. I needed someone who kind of knew me and had patience. And, you know, I don't know, it was probably the best thing ever that I've done. Well, I've only done a couple books, but with Jim, just because he knows tennis and he knows people and he knows the ins and outs, and, you know, to tell my story and share with him. I'm from Ohio and how I grew up, and, you know, I could tell that he was very intrigued about the book in general. And listen, that book alone has inspired so many people. And without Jim, as you know, it takes two to tango. Well, Jim was a huge part of that book, trust me.
Sure, and I love the quote on the back of the book. A little player by, I think his name is Andy Roddick, you know, a Hall of Famer, says, when people ask me who the best coach is for juniors, I immediately tell them Rick is the top guy in the world. How does that feel, Rick, I mean, Andy's not, I don't know if Andy, you know, he has a great podcast now called Serve. Not always effusive in his praise. You know, he can be critical. So that's a tremendous quote from a player like that.
Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, he was one of my favorites, and believe it or not, and his brother, John, he was an All-American at Georgia, kind of hurt his back. They were both two feisty cowboys from Texas. You know, he was a little pipsqueak. You know, when I had him, he was number one in the country when I had him at 12. He came to me at 9. I kind of put Humpty Dumpty together. I got to say this, Adam, his forehand looked kind of weird to me. He had the ATP forehand before the ATP forehand. He taught me. And that's a great lesson for anybody listening to this. I learn sometimes more from the players than they learn from me. And his contact point never deviated, it never shifted. So I'm sitting there going, okay, his racket's going faster and it's shorter. And that's kind of what you see obviously now. I'm heavy in the biomechanics. So, but the way he competed, he had to be first in line to get a drink, first to get the chair. There was a piece of chicken, he'd push you out of the way. If we played flag football, he'd go down and tackle the guy, then pull the flag. This guy was one of my all-time favorite competitors. And if you want a real tidbit here, I'm glad you're sitting down. He actually lost to Drew Brees, the quarterback, in tennis when in the 12 and unders.
Wow. That
How
is
crazy. I think they both made the right decision in their career. I mean, Andy was a year or two younger, but that's how good athlete Drew Brees was. But no, for Andy to feel that way, obviously it's a great endorsement and a great feeling. But once again, I think anybody that I've worked with, they know one thing. I leave it all on the court. I do everything possible. I try to turn every stone. And as they go through life, they experience other people. So they have a reference point of maybe the good, the bad, you know, people throwing curveballs, knuckleballs, sliders, you know. And so for him to feel that way, it's the best feeling in the world, because I not only educated him, obviously I motivated him.
No, that's great stuff. And I want to cover just a few more of your books, if you don't mind. Billion Dollar Mind, Practical Guide for Mental Strength in the Game of Life. You wrote this with the neurologist, Neva Uberetti-Girath. I hope I've pronounced that correctly.
You're in the neighborhood.
All right, I'm in the neighborhood.
Let's call her Dr. Neva.
Dr. Niva, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Coach. With the goal of enabling people to unleash their mind's full potential and achieve mental strength. So, is this applicable, would you say, Coach, to on and off the court? What your messages in here?
Well, first off, it really has nothing to do with tennis. Okay, it's all about the game of life and mental strength in the game of life. It's not even about sports, but there are common threads between the game of life and whatever sports you're playing, you know? And the fact that this is a crazy story. I actually taught Dr. Niva and her twin sister. They were #1 in the South back in the day. Okay. I taught her back in the day. Obviously, she went to Harvard. She became one of the best in the world in what she does. She reached out to me to do this book. Obviously, I said, absolutely. And what was amazing, Adam, is it almost validated. As I said earlier, I'm like a life coach. It validated all the mental stuff that I do on a regular basis and have since 1980, when my great friend and really the guy who helped me more than anybody, Dr. Jim Lair,
Sure.
we did stuff together at Greenleaf. So how I was wired growing up, my dad passed away at 10 years old, and I just did a lot on my own, and how I was put together and all these gold nuggets inside of me. Then doing this book with Dr. Niva on mental strength and having it backed up by science, how the brain really works. It validated everything I really done in my career from a mental training point of view, except I'm putting it in everyday words. And what's even crazier, the book is almost like 30 hours of private lessons. I got all these gold nugget quotes in there. And just as you know, one word or one sentence can change someone's life, because a lot of people are aware what they put in their mouth, or they should be, but they're not aware of what they put in their head. They see the news, social media, what they read, what they hear. And listen, the impact I've had on people, forget their tennis part, that's
Sure.
and it speaks for itself. It's crazy because they come back, better work ethic, they pass it down to their kids, don't make excuses, clean your room, treat others better than you treat yourself, appreciate what you have instead of what you don't have. I've always looked at things through a very different lens. And my favorite quote of all time, I got to say it, what you may see is different than Rick may see. So that's the quote right there, because I look at things very different, but the end game is just try to be the best you can be and get the most out of your ability.
Coach, you're a step ahead of me all the time, because I was going to go through more books. What's one of the books? What you see is different than Rick Macci. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Mental Magic and Think Like a Champion. Talk a little bit about these books, Rick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, the two audio books are on, on the website. Thousands and thousands of people have ordered it. It was a while back. One is just on stroke mechanics, which everybody loves, and the other is a lot of mental gold nuggets, and it's just on audio. Now, the last one I'm doing, Think Like a Champion, there's going to be some co-authors with me, and I've teamed up with one gold nugget, And I actually was on their podcast, the founder of Reebok. How crazy is that? The founder of Reebok, he just turned 90 years old.
Wow.
And you talk about full circle, the first deal that I helped put together was that $12 million deal with Venus with Reebok.
Wow.
So, life is it's an amazing thing, and I love it. But no, all the books are great, but the next one's going to be beyond epic, because there's going to be other people who will tell their story, whether it be CEOs, whether it be doctors, lawyers, along with myself. It's not out yet. It's still in the oven, baking. When it comes out, I'll put the icing on it and a few sprinkles, and it's going to taste great.
That's Think Like a Champion. Hall of Fame tennis coach Rick Macci and 20 business titans share their secrets to developing a winning mindset. That's going to be out soon. Mental Magic and What You May See is Different Than Rick Macci are on your Rick Macci website.
Yeah, those are audio, and like I said, thousands of people, very reasonable, and people can hear it all the time. And what I love more than anything, when people say, forget what it does to your tennis game, how it changed their life. Adam, that's powerful. Obviously I've heard that a lot, and I just try to lead by example, and because let's face it, how you look at things is all in the eye of the beholder. And if you want to change, the best thing to do is be around positive people and positive things, and instead of worrying about all the problems and stuff like that. It's all perspective, and that's what I try to do, and that's why I've had such a big impact, especially on youth. I get them, they listen to me a little bit more than their parents, how to look at things. You know what I mean? Because we all look at the same thing. We all have problems, but how we deal with it, that's a whole different animal.
Sure. And Rick, changing gears just a little bit. Two of the most famous students, obviously Venus, Serena Williams, the incredible story, how you took the Williams sisters with Richard Williams and Oracene Williams, the whole family, changed the world. Incredible movie, King Richard. You may know, because Jim probably told you, but many people who follow the podcast know that I'm a memorabilia guy, collect a lot of tennis memorabilia. So indulge me, because I got to show a few things and talk a little bit about the movie with you, okay?
Great.
Thank you. And behind you, great pictures.
You got everything back there.
It's all back there. It's great pictures. So one of my favorite items is my signed Rick Macci cover with Will Smith. He writes, "To Adam, bang, Rick Macci." Now, you got to tell me the origin of bang before we go any further.
No, it's like, I don't know. I just started doing that like when something was good, like a good shot or something. I just always ended with something positive, and bang just came up. And it's so funny because a lot of people go, "Wait a minute, are you sponsored by Bang, the energy drink? Are they paying you money?" I go, "No, but they maybe should be paying me something as much as I say bang." No, I've just always done it, and the kids like it, and I just flipped the script. Instead of just ending and coasting home, I always end it bang.
No, it's great. I've seen you do it with the kids, the juniors.
Yeah.
So when the movie came out, I picked up some promotional items I just want to show, which I will have signed by Rick Macci if he lets me down the road when I bother him at the Academy. But this is the poster coming soon to a theater near you. The famous shopping cart of tennis balls with the kids in it. So hopefully that came out. And then a lot of people may know that when a movie is coming out, they send copies of the movie to Academy members and voters. So this is what they sent to the Academy voters. This is like a kind of a DVD of the movie, and it says on the back, essentially, for your consideration in all categories, and it was considered in a lot of categories. The promotional package included a facsimile letter from the Williams sisters, which concluded, "In the end, we feel King Richard came together perfectly, and we sincerely hope you enjoy watching it as we did." And it also came with a picture of Venus and Serena and the kids and Will Smith, so the whole cast is there.
That's great. Never seen that. Seen that. That's awesome.
Wow. If Rick Macci hasn't seen it, I got something good.
Not that I didn't see that.
Yeah. And then one of my favorite covers, which is just Serena and Venus looking totally glam with Will Smith. And then so this is a nice banner from your website, which shows John Bernthal, who played you in the movie. So I have to ask you, and by the way, for those of you thinking, John Bernthal, great actor. You've seen him in Wolf of Wall Street. It looks different in every movie. You've seen him in The Accountant too, as but what's it like having somebody play you? That's got to be almost surreal, right?
Well, it's very interesting because when I heard there was going to be a movie, I wasn't really sure how this was going to play out because, a lot of people maybe not in tennis, they might thought it went from Compton to center court. And we all know after seeing the movie, that isn't what really happened. You know what I mean? So, but to answer your question, once I saw the movie, and by the way, when there was a private screening here in Boca, there was like 5 or 6 people that came, and one of them was Jim Marks.
Yeah, I know. I've seen that picture of him standing with you right by the sign. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's like epic. And I watched it, and it didn't kind of hit me. I didn't, I'm looking at it very differently. The first thing that was kind of different, I had this like little piece of astroturf as a mustache, and Bernthal had this big bushy shrubbery. So right off the bat, I got a little chippy when I saw that. I said, wait a minute. I didn't have that. But listen, the walk, the talk, the nuances, the subtleties, the clothes, 1000% spot on. Adam, it freaked me out. It freaked me out. I never freak out. I'm going, this is crazy. Because Isha, the oldest sister, was there the whole time. She's looking at this thing from a producer, from a older teenager's eyes, where BW and Serena, they were still little rats running around. So it shocked me how spot on it was. But then I had to ask my daughters afterwards. I go, wait a minute. Am I that wired all the time? Yes, Dad, you are. So I'm going, okay, I thought I'd pump it down a little bit, but I can't change. So I didn't realize I was just that plugged in all the time. And I didn't realize I had a little bit of an accent from Ohio, Kentucky. Even John, when John and I talked, he said, Rick, it took me a long time to kind of get how you talk. He studied a lot of video and all that good stuff and read the book, obviously, that Jim and I did together. But it wasn't surreal to me, and here's why. It's so real. I lived it. I was in that situation. All I cared about was one thing, making these two little girls the best they can be. I know that sounds very wholesome, but this is how I am as a coach. Every day, you got to get better or you're getting worse. And listen, I should be in the Hall of Fame just putting up with Richard for 4 years. Jiminy Christmas. That alone, I should get an award. I mean, this guy it was not easy. So my best coaching is keeping my mouth shut, okay? And because if he said left, I had to say right. He'd say this. But at the end of the day, it was all about BW and Serena. And so I was so into it and on a mission. Listen, when you say you're good, that's one thing, and you help someone. But when you put out hundreds of thousands or $1 million and roll the dice, I could have been wrong. They could have got hurt. Who know? I not only thought they could be number one in the world, I thought they could transcend the sport. Because back in the early 90s, if you were big and strong, you weren't nimble. I thought they'd bring a whole nother athlete, And so I just was so there, into it. But then when it came out in a movie, obviously it made me feel great while I was still on planet Earth, because it told the true story, how if I don't take a chance on these two little girls from the ghetto, okay, a big chance. I mean, listen, I bought them a $92,000 motorhome right off the bat. You got to understand, there was a lot put into this, besides hitting partners, taekwondo, boxing, ballet, my time, 4 or 5 hours a day. It was unreal. Disney tickets, seafood buffet, golf cart, condo. There was a lot into this with no track record. So I could have been wrong, because I've been wrong before, but I've been right more than wrong. So, but to see it in a movie, it came full circle. Tell you the truth, is the best feeling in the world. And to this day, going to the red carpet and then going to the after party and hooking up with BW and Serena and going back down memory lane, I had them both crying at them on the ground, telling stories that they even forgot about. And I got so many stories, it's unbelievable, because it was just the best time of our lives. And then reuniting with Richard, okay, and going to West Palm Beach, he's like my best friend. He comes to the academy, he's hanging in there. It's the best feeling in the world that it came full circle, and the whole world knows that if I don't take a chance, who knows what would have happened.
It is an extraordinary story, and you've covered kind of a lot of the ground I was going to cover with you. What's it like attending a Hollywood premiere? It has to be somewhat interesting and surreal. And then talk a little bit about your appreciation for actors like Jon Bernthal and their process, and Will Smith winning an Oscar. It has to be, greatness, and you saw greatness in both actors. Are there parallels between tennis and focus and what they did, you had to be impressed.
Yeah. No, first off, great question. First off, when I talked to Will Smith, okay, he was more excited to meet me than I was him, you know. I just knew him like Men in Black and, you know,
Sure.
that TV show back in the day. I told him, listen, I never, I can't even tell you, you were better than Richard. You know, the walk, the talk, the gestures, the clothes, everything. And he said, Rick, this kind of happened, you know, we had to stop and start because of COVID. And I would go home in costume. Adam, he went home.
Wow.
And he'd still be Richard talking to his kids and still doing the drill after it was all over. And when I told him, it blew me away. And he told me right there, no matter what critic or whatever anybody says about the movie, my opinion mattered more to him than anybody because I was there. And Richard was my best friend. And for that to come from me to him, he was just so, he was so appreciative of that. And I said, listen, I don't know how this works, but I'm telling you right now, you're going to win an Oscar. And I said it that night. And the Oscar wasn't until a year. No, if people go on, this was exactly like Richard. Now, to go a little further, even though I'm going off track here, when that happened a year later or whenever,
Sure.
at the Oscars, when Chris Rock
Sure.
said that stuff,
I know what you're talking about.
and Will freaked out. People ask me all the time, what was that all about? Well, first off, to me, I have the answer. It's like Heath Ledger playing the Joker. You become that character. Okay, this guy became Richard. He was such a staunch defender of his family. Okay, when that happened, I don't know, he was Richard. Listen, why would you do that on the biggest night of your life? You're going to finally win an Oscar. He did it for Ali. He did it for other things. Why would he do that? He was Richard. He didn't even know. I know people can't relate to an actor. They become so into the character. And at that moment, even though the movie was long gone, he was still Richard. That's the only thing that I could think of. But no, these people, him and Bernthal, listen, 1,000 people, John said, tried out to become Rick Macci. And he won. And when they first saw him, the producer, when John came up, you know, he was a lot more muscular than me and 30 pounds heavier. And he was the Punisher, or like you said,
Sure.
Wall Street. I mean, and they just probably thought, what's this guy trying out for? And this guy said, I want this role. And he was on a mission. He studied video, the book. We talked on the phone a lot. And he won the thing. So think about it. People don't realize 1,000 people try out for the part,
Sure.
and you win it. Okay. And then how much pride and dedication behind the scenes are you going to put into it? Like, it took him a long time to kind of get my voice and some of my mannerisms. Okay. So I have so much respect for an actor, especially now, because I know exactly what I did and Richard. So when I see that, I have a roadmap or blueprint to make a judgment on, because I was in it, and they both were beyond spectacular.
Yeah, no, it really is amazing. And interestingly enough, I actually have had one other person on the pod that has been the subject of an actor. Rosie Casals, obviously, has been played at least twice in Battle of the Sexes, because as you recall, she was, believe it or not, one of the broadcasters of that match, sitting next to Howard Cosell. Supposed to be Jack Kramer, but Billie Jean King. So I asked her the same question. So it's interesting to have kind of back-to-back people who've actually been portrayed in movies. And it's got to be a surreal. But let's, as you would say, let's switch gears a little bit, Rick. Let's back the truck up. Sorry to steal that phrase. How early on, when you're coaching a new junior player, can you see both the tangibles and the intangibles that others may not see that lead to greatness, and what exactly are you looking for?
Well, it depends on the person, but sometimes I can see it in 5 minutes. Okay. Number one, look at the genetic base first. The family tree doesn't lie. If you have it in your pocket, some speed, some quickness, some competitiveness, that could be environmental from the family. So I got all these little nuggets that I kind of formulate. Listen, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. I understand the 12s is different than when you're 20. You're going to get bigger, stronger, faster, quicker, smarter. I get all that. It's junior development, not junior final destination. It's a little easier with the girls because it's not as physical as the guys. You grow 6 inches and your serve gets 30 miles faster. You're in a tiebreaker with Federer. Even though he's 19 out of 20 boxes, he's better than you. Men's tennis is a different animal. Okay, Serena says it's a different sport. So at the end of the day, I can tell right away, okay, now there's no given because you don't know about injury or people might lose interest. They get a driver's license, a boyfriend, a girlfriend. The family dynamic could change, parents divorce. Who knows what happened? There's many speed bumps, but just evaluating talent, I had no doubt at all about Venus and Serena, about Capriati, about Sharapova, about Kenin, okay, about, I'm sure Matt has told you about Vlada Hrančar, this little Ukrainian girl that I have. I have no doubt whatsoever, where those guys went. And if you back the truck up, Sharapova, I set it at 11. Okay, I got it all over my wall. And I don't say that about everybody. You become 50 in the world, that's a great accomplishment. But I'm saying she can win a Grand Slam. This girl can be number one. Jennifer, is going to be this. Okay. So I don't know. I've just done this for so long. I can just see it. I know right away. Now, that doesn't mean a few things can't be nurtured and developed. Okay. But if you're a lamb, could I make you a lion? Maybe, but I'll probably make you an angry lamb. That's probably what will probably happen. I don't know if I can flip it that far, because at the very top, the competitiveness and the movement to me is the wild card. And if I see that right away, I can put Humpty Dumpty together and develop a mindset to seek and destroy and have good mechanics as good as anybody that's ever done this. So, but I can see right away. The guys, it's trickier. I don't like, I have people tell me all the time, listen to this. They see this video of Serena at 11. It's all over the internet. And they say, I had over probably 10,000 people say, my kid's better than that. I don't think so, okay? But they saw that video.
Sure.
Arms going one way, legs going the other, beads off her head. She looked, but they didn't see what I saw. Had all the time in the world. She knew where the ball was going before you did. They didn't see that she was probably going to be 5'9", 5'10", 160, big, quick, strong, fast, agile, mobile, could do the splits. They're looking at an 11-year-old kid that looks like that, where I project of where this is going to be, like a scout in basketball or football. I project, and I've done this for so long, and that's kind of what I did. I didn't base Venus and Serena on what I saw in Compton. What I saw in Compton was a train wreck until we start competing. Then I saw something inside. I said, that's good enough for me. I can see where this is going to go. So early on, I can tell it right away. And here's what's interesting. I've never said, I don't know how good that girl's going to be. I don't think she'll be that good. And she becomes like top 10 in the world. Never. Okay? Because people have asked me a lot of time, do for my kids or my family like you did for Venus and Serena. And I've never done that since that time. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I'd have to be just blown away in all these categories. But I can tell right away, but I can nurture it even better now because I just have a better understanding of biomechanics on how the best way is to hit the ball.
I remember you saying two particular things about that Compton initial meeting that stuck with me. One was you're watching them hit and thinking, what am I doing here? This is not impressive. When you said, let's play some points, your eyes just bugged out. You saw two of the most competitive people you'd ever seen, including Venus just going to get some water and walking on her hands and doing backflips. And then I think you said to Richard, I think you've got Michael Jordan here. And he said,
no, brother, man, I got the next two.
There it is.
That's in the movie. I mean, all this stuff's in the movie.
Right.
But to go back to that whole Compton thing, we got on the court. Now, remember, I had Jennifer Capriati for 3.5 years. Poetry in motion, the ball on a string, low center of gravity, racket back in the parking lot, great fundamentals from the late, great Jimmy Everett. Listen, at 12 years old, Jennifer won the national 18 and under hard court and clay court at 12 years old. She was 5'4", 108 pounds. Give me a break. I mean, you can't do that now. The game's more physical.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I had Capriati. So this was like, you know, she could hit a ground stroke with a cup of water on her head, not spill it. And here I'm out in Compton, and I'm seeing a praying mantis. Venus was tall and skinny. A praying mantis, and Serena, an airplane would go by. She'd wave at it. I'm going, oh my God, what am I doing in Compton, California? And we did drills for like an hour, and I didn't see anything other than two people that were probably going to be athletic. That's it. Then I said, let's play competitive points. Me and Serena, because she was littler. Venus was almost 5'9", against Venus. When I said, let's play competitive points instead of these, what they called stupid drills, okay? But I had to see the temperature. I had to see what they had. Freaked me out. It blew me away. When we start keeping score, they start popping the popcorn, extra butter. The feet were moving better. The shoulder preparation, everything was better. But what blew me away, Adam, was there was a rage. Okay, I'm just telling you, there was something inside these two little girls I never saw in my life. The ball would be 10 feet out. You know, if it's 10 inches out, some people don't even run for it. There's no way they could have got to the ball, even if they called an Uber. Well, back in 91, there wasn't an Uber, a taxi. Right. They couldn't have called it, they couldn't have got to the ball. They kept running. A few times, Venus and Serena would fall down. Not because they're clumsy. Their nose was that far off the ground. It was like a personal thing with them and the ball. And I'm sitting there going, this is crazy. They just focused more when we kept score. Then later in the day, we did drills, same old stuff, you know, arms and legs. The praying mantis returned, okay? It was crazy stuff. But after that whole thing, I told Richard, and it's in the movie, like you said, Richard, come here. I said, let me tell you something. It was more about Venus because she was more mature. You got the next female Michael Jordan on your hand. He puts his arm around me and he goes, no, brother, man, I got the next two. I couldn't see it as much initially, Adam, with Serena, other than I knew where it was going because her mind, she wasn't mature yet. I mean, let's face it, we're doing a drill, an airplane goes overhead and she's waving at it. I'm not sitting there going, I think this girl will be number one in the world someday. You know, and that's a great lesson for any coach, parent, or Rick Macci. You don't judge a book by the cover. The cover could be amazing, the book bad. Cover amazing, the book bad. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. And I just saw unlimited potential, and it was my job, okay, to give these girls a chance. Because listen, they weren't in the front row or the back row. They weren't even in the building, you know? And best decision I ever made. Spent the whole Saturday there, went out to dinner that night, all of Sunday together. And 3 months later, they came to Greenleaf. A month later, we signed a deal, and the rest is history.
Rick, we've talked a lot about how this experience changed them. How did it change you? Again, we've talked, we know what happened with Serena, we know what happened with Venus, but how did it change you and your entire perspective on life and coaching?
Well, it made me a little more guarded entering into, a contractual relationship, because it got a little fuzzy at the end, and Richard wanted to do the coaching after the Reebok deal and stuff like that. So that was the only thing, because I know at the end of the day, I mean, listen, when you do that much for 4 years and you're just playing the lottery and you hit it and you got a little sister coming up, might be better. I did everything possible. I felt great. I feel great about myself, everything I do, because I know I expect the best from me. And I've always felt that way. I never just mail it in. Listen, I could mail it in. I still teach 50 hours a week. So it didn't change me whatsoever, other than I'd have to see something better or potentially better to, I don't want to say bankroll, but to get involved financially like that.
Sure.
I'll help kids out a little bit, now and then. But to fund a project, I would have to be blown away. But it didn't change me whatsoever, because at the end of the day, we were family, and Venus and Serena were like my own daughters.
Can you talk a little bit about your background, how it shaped the person and the coach you are today?
Absolutely. I grew up in a small town, Greenville, Ohio, 20 miles southwest of Dayton, Ohio. As a kid, I was a very good golfer. Both my parents were like county champion and golfers. I mean, back in the day, I could hit it so straight, Adam. They used to call me the arrow. Now it's the sparrow. I don't even play golf anymore. So I had a 4 handicap at 10 years old. Okay, you got to understand, I was like really good in golf. I play all the time. My father passed away when I was 10 years old. We lived in a park, and a half mile from the park were tennis courts. I went down there at age 12, picked up a racket. I hit against the wall. I loved it. Wally's undefeated. Okay, well, it always came back. And I just loved hitting the ball against the wall. And I fell in love with the game. Now listen to this. It's a crazy story. At 12 years old, never had a lesson. Okay, by 18, I'm skipping over a lot. By 18 years old, I'm #1 in the Ohio Valley, beating All-Americans,
Wow.
and never had a lesson in my life. You know what I mean? I got real good, real quick, always very competitive, crazy work ethic. After basketball practice, I'd run home, eat. My mom would take me back to the high school. Sometimes I'd shovel snow to clear a path, and I hit ground strokes with my T2000. I had the Jimmy Connors racket and the haircut. So I had the haircut and the racket like
Awesome.
Connors, but he was a whole different animal. And I had to keep getting better. I'd practice all the time, hitting the ball against the wall in the gym or outdoors. And so, but all those gold nuggets that I acquired as a kid, doing it on my own, the hard way, wasn't given anything. Then at 22, I got into teaching, and I found out those Midwest qualities. I like helping others more than myself. I love seeing people excel more than myself. And I had this relentless, never let go. I have to find the answer. I have to find the answer, like a woodpecker. If the front door is closed, I'll go through the side window. If the side window is closed, I'll go through the basement or the chimney. I just had to find the answer. And that's what I do even to this day. I never satisfied until I know it's heading in a world-class direction. And that's kind of how I always was early on with my teaching. And I teach anybody, anytime. After Ohio, teaching at a few clubs, I went to New Jersey for a year. I still played. I was #1 adult in New Jersey. Then in 1980, I saw a tournament on TV. It was called the United Airlines Sunbird Cup. It was at a place called Greenleaf Golf and Tennis Resort in Haines City, Florida. I saw Martina Navratilova playing Tracy Austin in the finals. And I said, it was raining. That's the only reason why I was watching TV. And I heard they were hiring people. So somehow I got the number. I called down there. The guy said, listen, we're hiring people, someone in a week. We've got a stack of resumes like this. If you want to fly down on your own, come on down. I went down there, spent the whole weekend. It was so hot. Okay, there was like palmetto bugs the size of tennis balls, and a lizard would go across the court and it would die. It couldn't even get there. And not one person played tennis. And I'm sitting there going, whoa. The place was beautiful. It was out in the middle of the orange grove. It was crazy beautiful. And the guy took me back to the airport that Sunday night and said, listen, you want the job, it's yours. whatever. I don't know what I did, whatever. We played tennis together.
That's awesome.
And so I took a big pay cut. I went there in 1980. And once again, kind of like what I did here at South County Park, the Miracle in the Orange Grove. I turned it into not only a vacation destination for tourists, okay, the tennis park, one of the top 10 resorts in Florida, one of the top 25 in the United States for a tennis vacation. I did corporate dog and pony show. I would get up in the umpire's chair. I was kind of the announcer, as you can imagine.
Sure.
Crowd cheers, crowd boos. I was doing about 100 corporate tournaments a year. I loved doing it, okay, for IBM, General Motors. I did a lot of that stuff. And then the teaching in about 85, 84, a doctor from Winter Haven, Florida, Wrong Dad Ho. He had 3 sons. His youngest was Tommy Ho. He brought me this kid. He held the racket like a ping pong paddle. I go, what is this? The guy, I didn't know what side he was hitting the ball on. And back then, the Western grip was a little taboo. Fast forward that story, age 12, the most dominant junior ever, the best player voted ever to come out of Florida, okay, of all the boys, Tommy, okay, Florida Hall of Fame. Most dominant junior player ever, 15 gold balls by age 15, won all the Grand Slam juniors in the 12, 14, youngest ever to win the 18s as a 15-year-old, you know. So it all started with Tommy. He was like my own son. Then after Tommy, when they saw him serve 112 miles an hour at 12 years old, Stefano Capriati goes, I want my daughter to serve like that, because she kind of got it in like Chrissy. She had the mind like Chris Evert, and the groundies kind of like Chrissy, but he wanted to serve. They moved from Lauderhill to Greenleaf. Then when they were there for 3.5 years, then obviously Venus and Serena came. I started an academy there. It just started there, and I'm really the last of the Mohicans. I started in 85. I've tweaked it many times. We're not a glorified boarding school. Okay, it's more instructional. You got to come and stuff like that and relocate, but still standing strong. And that means one thing: you're doing something right. You're delivering the goods. Because a lot of people on the tour can start an academy and, you know, they're there 3 years and I got to deal with parents. I got to deal with crazy parents and kids and all this crazy stuff that goes on in junior tennis. And I still love it, Adam, just as much today at age 70 as I did at 22. And that's what I feel the best about when I get up every day at 1. And people say, wait, why do you get up at 1? I say, well, 12 o'clock's a little too early, okay? So I get up every day at 1, I do my thing, I open up the park at 4 o'clock, and I have just as much passion today as I did back then, and it's the best feeling in the world.
Just people know some of your references, by the way. You mentioned Matt before. That's Matt Pressman, the current owner, publisher of Florida Tennis, who's doing a great job. And when you say 1, you're talking about 1 a.m. is when you're waking up, and 4 a.m. is when you're unlocking the gate, right?
Yeah, at 70 years old, I'm a park ranger. I'm putting that on my resume. So, yeah, I get up at 1 o'clock. I eat the same thing. I go in the office for an hour. I return all the emails personally. Sometimes I do Zoom or FaceTime video. People in India, Germany, Belarus. I do a lot of instruction on my phone and even over the internet. Run a half mile. I tell everybody, if you get into a routine, you become a machine. And I open up the park at 4, and most of the time I start at 5. So I love it, and I wouldn't do it any other way.
Incredible. Now, I was going to ask you to take us through a day in the life, and you've kind of done that. That is
I usually go to bed at 7, and I get up at 1, and I teach 7 days a week. On the weekend, I'm usually out of there by 12. But then again, I start at 5 in the morning. You know, I start teaching it at 5. And, you know, listen, I'm getting ahead and others are still in bed. You know, I'm still a competitor, and it just works for me. Okay, it just works for me. And I think when, like I said, you get into a routine and it's all about positivity, and you're around kids and you're changing lives and you love helping others. You know, I sweep the sidewalk. They go, why do you sweep the sidewalk? It's like, I look at it as exercise. I don't look at it like someone else should do it. I look at it as exercise, and I want to do it. It's when you have gratitude and appreciation You just stay grounded. And that's been really the cornerstone of Rick Macci in his life.
Well, I'm going to run through some Rick Macci quotes that I picked, and if you can elaborate on them, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Coaches don't just change strokes, coaches change people's lives. Can you talk a little bit about that quote?
Absolutely. I think that's the most important thing. Unfortunately, a lot of people who coach, they teach how they were taught or what they read. You don't read a book and become a better coach. You might know more, but coaching is an art. How to say it, why to say it, when to say it, who to say it to, how loud to say it, how soft, when to bend down if the kid's a little kid. How I teach a 20-year-old on the tour is different than a 9-year-old. You know what I mean? And that's the art of coaching, because one word can change someone's life. And coaches don't realize they're a father figure indirectly and a role model, because they've entrusted you with their kid. But unfortunately, most of the profession, they don't look at it like that. I understand they got to make money and all that, but they look at it differently, you know? And so if anybody's hearing this, that's worked for me throughout my career. And hopefully someone can pick up on that and help their career.
Change your perspective and change your mindset.
Yeah, everybody looks at the same thing. Like you and I could look at the same thing and we could see something very different. And then we're going to react from that very different, what we say or what choice we make, all how we look at it. You know, it's very, very different. And that's why people need to be around motivational speakers. They need to be around positive people. They look at someone and say, hey, that guy's really successful or wealthy or whatever. They don't realize that could be them if that's what they want to do. You know, but some people like to be miserable. Some people like to make excuses. Some people like to gossip. They like the train wreck. So, you know, you get what you deserve. So it's all how we look at things. And like someone said to me, they go, why are you always in a good mood? I go, well, why are you? Or what? How do I even answer that? You know, when you appreciate every day, okay, you should thank God it's today, not thank God it's Friday. And like I said earlier, appreciate what you have. And that's the way I always felt, instead of what you don't have. And that's what people don't understand. And you'll be a lot more at peace with yourself. And it's the best feeling in the world, because you know that your wires are in the right direction.
Indulge me with two more quotes. The more you fail, the more you are going to succeed.
Absolutely. Listen, the best quarterbacks with the most touchdowns probably have the most picks. You know, the guy that missed the most 3-pointers, he's missed the most. You know what I mean? No one missed more drop shots as a kid than Carlos Alcaraz. And no one has changed the game with the drop shot and makes more with disguise and deception and gives you a brutal reception more than the Spanish magician. Let's face it. And this is what people don't do. When they fail, they bail. Instead of failing is looking at opportunity to try again. I tell kids all the time, no one got past more and missed more overheads than Bethany Maddox-Sands. I didn't even include her. I taught Bethany because she tried more. She was at the net more in a month than Sharapova was in a year, or Jennifer. And so happened she's probably one of the best doubles players of all time and one of the best mixed doubles of all time. She got carved up like a Thanksgiving turkey when she was little. She, you know, little arms, little legs. She kept coming, you know, and then she knows the net like it's her living room when she's on the tour. Everybody can volley, but you might not know how to play the net. That's different. So that being said, the more that you fail or the more that you miss, you're going to make. You got to fail. You got to fail. No one's missed more last-second shots than Jordan, and no one's made more clutch shots than him and Curry. This is what people don't understand, and that's the role of a coach and a parent. Because when people, especially in junior tennis, and that's the kiss of death, especially with the girls, if they get past at the net, they ain't going there for a month, okay? They ain't going there. They'd rather die slowly at the baseline, you know what I mean? And this is junior development, and I get people to get uncomfortable. So eventually they'll be comfortable. And I explain it many different ways. I give stories. I make them do it. I set the table. I get them, because then once you prove it to yourself, and you get the big C, confidence, changes everything. Most people wait till they're bigger, stronger, and older. And I said, what were you doing at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? You know what I mean?
Sure.
You wasted a lot of valuable time because you can't get back the time.
One of my other favorite quotes, this will be the last quote though. You have to control the situation. Do not let the situation control you.
Absolutely. That's one of my all-time favorites because we let everything control us. Okay. A perfect example, if I went to a red light and the person in front of me was stopped and I'm behind the car and then it turns green. Okay. There's many ways I could react. I can beep the horn for 5 seconds. I could yell at the guy. I could tell him he's number one. Okay. Many people have done that. I could get mad and get out of the car. Okay. Or he's going to go, just stay calm, and the guy will go and fine. So it's better for your health. You know, you control the situation. Don't let things control you. Everybody is always reacting to things. Okay. And that's the problem. Okay. You want to understand what's going on, but before you do anything, you got to think. You shouldn't just do things right away. And you want to control the situation. I don't mean like a control freak. I don't mean that by the quote. That you're in control of everything you do. Like you and I, we're in control of the podcast. You want me to come on? I want to come on. So we're in control. You're in control when it ends. I'm in control what I'm going to do afterward. We're always in control, but people let everything control us, whether it be money, whether it be friends, whether it be work. I know you have to have certain guidelines and so on and so forth, but always remember, if you control the situation, because you're making a choice, okay, you're going to feel so much better about everything because you do have choices and you are in control.
Well, I want to touch a little bit more on Jennifer Capriati. I'll steal
By the way,
one
of my all-time favorite students of all time.
Right. And I don't, this is personally, I don't know that she gets the love and the respect she deserves. And that's probably a whole other podcast, but I'll steal this from you. You called her comeback Rocky Balboa-esque, and it really was, and not talked about a lot, but can you talk about her greatness both physically and mentally as a player, and including just the extraordinary comeback of Jennifer Capriati?
Yeah, if I could first off back that truck up, once again, I had Jennifer from age 10 to 13. At 12 years old, I took her to California. She won the 18 nationals. I had to convince Stefano and Denise to even play. Oh, I don't want my little baby to get hurt. These are like grown women. They're going to Stanford. I had to convince them to play. And she won 4 matches, 3 sets. Houdini escape, this little pipsqueak staying on the baseline. Okay. And then she turned everybody on her head. You could turn pro back then at 14. And she was top 10 in the world within a year. Everybody knows this story.
Sure.
Okay. It's kind of inflamed a lot. It's not as what they think. But at the end of the day, this is what here's the real story. Life is a journey. Life is not a straight line. Life is about ups and downs, about, falling down, getting back up. It's only over when you quit. And this is what people don't understand. So she quit for a while for whatever reasons, came back, waffled around 150. Okay. And she didn't, but I tell everybody, you don't lose the talent. You don't lose the magic. She had magic. Okay. You don't lose the talent. You lose the confidence and you lose the fitness. Those two things kind of go hand in hand. And I actually worked with her a little bit. Okay. And I'm not sure what year it was. And I told her, I said, listen, Steffi Graf's not getting that ball. She goes, really? You think she wouldn't get that ball? I went, whoa. That's not the 12-year-old, 13-year-old that I knew. She didn't, you forget how great you are. And I had to kind of remind her a little bit. So fast forward the story. Now she's on the tour. She's 150. She not only comes back, because remember, she had lasers on both sides. When you have firepower, and you're shooting missiles from North Korea off both sides, she can play right through anybody. Okay. And then she gets confidence. 150, 100, 50. 20, comes all the way back to number one in the world, okay, wins 2 or 3 Grand Slams and Olympic gold medal, gets a huge contract from FILA. Remember, girls are going to be more sensitive to media scrutiny, and Jennifer didn't like the public eye. She was very sensitive girl, very caring girl. That's why she kind of got in the wrong crowd. But at the end of the day, for her to come back and do what she did, to me, I don't care about anything. That's the biggest sports story, in my opinion, the last 40 years. Because it's one thing to, wow, look what someone did. But when you are that, and then you go all the way to the other end, and she could have quit or not come back. She not came back and got to 20, number one, and 3 slams, and a gold medal, and the $10 million contract from FILA. So to me, that just shows you the mental magic. And she probably would have done more. She got shoulder surgery, and the guy kind of messed it up. And from there, it was an issue. But that story alone, there should be a major motion picture or a documentary. I actually talked to the running back for the Eagles, Barkley. His company might be doing something with Jennifer, and it's a story that should be told, because when you saw the King Richard movie, she was kind of the poster child for, this was what could happen, okay? And it wasn't really, they should have said, okay, but then when they did the credits,
right,
when you saw those credits at the end and all the accomplishment, they should have had something about Jennifer and how she came back and accomplished what you and I talked about. But to me, that's a Oscar-winning movie or documentary, just the story of Jennifer Capriati. And that's the American dream. You're down and out, and you go all the way to the mountaintop.
I'm seeing the movie Queen Jennifer, John Bernthal's back as Rick Macci. You heard it here first. Exclusive.
No, I could tell that story, and that would be amazing.
Rick, why do we see so many coaches in player boxes these days? You're looking at these matches, but we don't see Rick Macci. Why do we not see you in a player box at Roland Garros?
Because I elect not to. First off, I had many opportunities through my career to become a travel coach or a travel buddy, if whatever you want to call it. That is more motivation, strategic, manager, okay? And they might obviously need a job. Okay, I don't need a job. I have a business, and I'd rather be sleeping in my own bed, changing lives. I'd rather buy the cake mix on aisle 5 in Publix, put it in the oven, bake it, put the icing on it, sprinkles, okay? And then they can go out on the pro tour. Now, I had an opportunity to go with Venus and Serena. Richard offered me $1 million a year, and I didn't want to give up my business. So at the end of the day, that's really why I don't do that. I think people that do that, they don't have a business. And people that do that and have a business, they find out then it hurts their business. And one thing about my business, I'm here every day. My name's on the door. I teach more privates, Adam, than anybody in the world. Amazing. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And that's what I like to do. I'm not, how do I say it? If I had someone like Vlada, who I'm taking care of, maybe if that keeps on going or whatever, that could happen if I had the time, but I like doing what I'm doing. And I think that's a little stereotype, because if you look at the people in the box, they almost change every year.
Oh, there's no question. There is a coaching roulette, unfortunately, on the tour. But how would you rate, Rick, the state of American men's tennis today? Broad question.
The best ever. Well, the best ever. Here's why. Forget like McEnroe and Connors and, back in the day, because the game is very different. Right now, it's at an all-time high.
Wow.
With the depth. Okay, the depth. But Adam, we should have the depth. There's so many players in this country, and there's so much money spent, and there's so many people playing. We should have that many people in the top 50 or the top 100. We should. But the caveat is this: unless you get, I'll say, like a LeBron James type player or the ultimate athlete, okay, to get to number 1 or 2 or 3 maybe and stay there, that's going to be kind of difficult, because other countries, that's the type of mental and physical athlete that you're getting into tennis, where a lot of these players navigate to the NFL or the NBA, and you're going to get that fair share of players. You know, you got Fritz, you got Francis, you got Paul, you got all those players, and there's a lot of depth, and I can do it, you can do it, let's go. So, but for greatness, I just think you're going to have somebody that has unreal genetics, faster than fast, quicker than quick, can jump like a jackrabbit, parents that played competitive sports, okay? And then you put optimal mechanics, the Federer forehand, the Djokovic backhand, the Roddick serve, you know, you put all this together, okay, and greatness is going to be there on a regular basis. I tell people all the time, if I would have had LeBron James at age 10, no doubt he could be number 1 in the world. No doubt.
That is amazing.
You can teach him the strokes, but look what he's bringing to the table. You know, he's bringing size and strength and speed and jumping ability and power. Then it's a matter of, are you putting what type of strokes on the person? Sure. See, this is what we don't get, but that's the state of American tennis for the girls. Like I said, it's a little easier. It's not as physical. You know, number 1 could be around the corner for Coco. What's crazy about Coco, everybody talks about her athletic ability, and especially me, Olympic sprinter with a racket in her hand, a backbone stronger than her backhand. You ready for this? Her little brother, Cameron, age 11, is much better athlete than her. He comes to the camp. He's the most I tell Corey, the dad, all the time, he's the most competitive kid I've ever met.
Now he's baseball, though. He focuses on baseball, though, right?
Well, that's the other brother.
The other brother, okay.
This one does everything. He's a number 1 middle school quarterback in the United States.
Wow.
Who knows? This kid could be 6'4", 250 someday. I told his dad, I said, Corey, this guy's so competitive. When we play points, he's arguing in the warm-up. I said, what is this with these kids? And he starts laughing. No. A great athlete. He's a better athlete than anybody that comes here, but he doesn't have the skills because he only plays, I'll play tennis today. I'm going to run an AAU 100 meter and I'll win that. I'm going to go out and, you know, play football today. So if we get that type of athlete, then someone will not only get there, and all these guys that are out there, they can win a slam, but a cameo, but to get there and stay there, that's rare air, you know? And the girls, there's many girls. Pagula can win a slam. Navarro can win a slam. Coco's already won one. But to get there and dominate, like you saw Rafa, Fed, and the Joker, and what you're maybe going to see the next 12, 15 years with Sinner and Alcaraz, no one's in that category yet.
There's an iconic picture of you. I think it may have been taken by Art Seitz, who's the legendary photographer from Florida Tennis, who's a contributor here. Of course, he was featured in many publications. It's one of my favorite photos of you. It's you,
Sonia Kennan.
So Sonia Kennan. She's in the car.
See how I work on my anticipation.
Yes,
on and off the court, I work on my anticipation.
That was great, Coach. She's got the number 1 up. You look like the 2 happiest people I've ever seen. She's from Pembroke Pines. Talk about her competitive spirit at that young age and what it was like coaching her from an early age.
Brutal. It's like, listen, back then, I didn't teach young kids like that. I only was teaching like national rank kids, and now I teach anybody, you know. But it's like this. They came to me. Obviously, they knew I coached the Williamses, and this little girl came out. The racket was bigger than her. Okay, and right off the bat, nothing to do with Rick Macci. At 5 years old, she had timing, and you can't buy it over the internet. You can't buy it at Walgreens or Publix. She could time the ball, even though the swings were very complicated. She was a little peanut. And I just said, whoa. And then her concentration, we would go for an hour, 2 hours. She was right there. And I'm going, whoa, this is very interesting. kind of what I saw in Sharapova. I didn't see that at a young age with Venus, but this girl was 5, and it was crazy. So I took that timing. I said, let's hit every ball right off the bounce. I'd lob the ball 10 feet in the air. She'd go da 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 boom, da 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 boom. It'd be a 1 2 1 2. It was like a dance. She could take it right off the bounce, like Agassi. It was unbelievable. And I said, at age 7, scariest little creature I ever taught. This girl will win a Grand Slam. Okay, it's probably in Florida Tennis. I know it's on the wall here somewhere. I took her in 2007 when I got, I think, Coach of the Year. And I went to Marco Island. She came with me to do an exhibition. You never saw so many jaws drop. So I brought someone out. Who wants to hit with this girl? Because they didn't know. They're seeing this little girl, and she was little, and 7. So you got to look. They're not used to what I'm used to. And they're all 500-600 coaches. People freaked out. They freaked out how this girl was timing the ball. Now, I didn't know how big she was going to be. Many things can sidetrack you, but I just knew the mental was already going to be there. You can get that later on, like Serena. The timing was there. I just had to explain to her the geometry of the court because she wasn't going to be like Venus or a big physical player. And she knew the geometry of the court by age 12. And then when she started growing more and more in the juniors, I knew that she was going to be one of the best players in the world. Now, we all know that the mental part, she struggled a little bit since she's been on the tour for many reasons. But if she's locked and loaded and ready to launch, I have no doubt she can be right back in there in the top 5. She has that capability. You see her pushing Sabalenka around the court. Then you see her check out at Publix and get 2 donuts from Dunkin' Donuts from Coco. So it's a fragile thing. You don't get too high or low about that. But Sonia's one of my all-time favorite and a brutal competitor, unreal competitor. Whenever she lost, I got to tell this story.
Sure,
whenever
please.
Whenever we lost, she lost at the academy. She would come up and she'd be pulling on the back of my shirt. I want to play him again with that Russian accent. I want to play him again. Okay, no problem. And then she'd be leaving and roll down the window of the car. I want to play him again. Relentless, kind of like Roddick.
I love that. Rick, how would you, we're going to wrap this up very soon, Rick. I'm taking it, I have to admit, I'm taking advantage of the rain a little bit. But how would you talk about the state of women's tennis and the accomplishment of our cover story, Maddie Keys, to come through? It's probably, to me, the tennis story of 2025. So how would you rate American women's tennis right now and Maddie Keys' accomplishment?
American women's tennis is at an all-time high, other than when you had the Williams sisters there. You had Venus, Serena were 1 and 2 in the world, lived in the same house and shared the same bedroom. That's pretty crazy. Now we're talking, Coco, and then you got Madison Keys, who I've known for a long time. Raw firepower off the ground. Mentally, she kind of flipped the switch. Once again, not where you start, where you finish. Who would have thought, right? So, but you got her, you got Navarro, you got Collins still hanging around in there. You got all these players that, because it's very fluid. Now that Iga is having some issues and you don't know where that's going to end up. Rybakina, she's kind of there. Sabalenka, if she's in a bad mood, she's not rock solid, even though she's by far the best player because she can just play through you. Okay, so yeah, listen, this is the best women's tennis has ever been since the Williams sisters. And all the players that I've mentioned, they're not going anywhere. Pagula,
Sure.
They're not going, and a few more are going to enter the mix. A few more players are going to enter that arena just because it's more fluid. There's not a lot, Adam, of proven at the top. You know what I mean? Especially now that Iga, she has 5 slams, but her losing on clay, and you see the
Sure.
mental stuff, she might be able to get it back. I'm sure she will, but it's so wide open. Even the French, it's going to They're going to call it the French Wide Open. It won't be the French Open, the French Wide Open. And I wouldn't be surprised for an American to win the title.
Rick, we are nearing the end of what has been one of my favorite all-time interviews. I'm going to hit you with 5 rapid-fire questions. You ready?
I'm ready.
Best advice you were ever given?
Follow your dreams.
Best advice you would give any tennis coach?
Get better.
Best advice you would give to any tennis parent?
Support.
Most important ingredient to success?
Persistence.
What do you love most about tennis?
Everything.
Rick, finally, this is the big question now, Rick. You got to think about, focus on this one. What does the future hold for you? What are your goals? What are your hopes? What are your dreams on and off the court?
Well, first off, in production, well, not production, we're going to do a TV show about tennis parents and, how I put this together and train players. Venus and Serena are the executive producers. That's kind of in the oven. It won't happen until next year. So that's a project I'm working on. One of the books, you've already mentioned about that. I just love doing what I'm doing. I want to keep doing it for another 20 years, helping kids at the academy and become the best they can be. And then Vlada Hrancha, the 9-year-old who won the Little Mo Grand Slam, obviously help her the best I can, because pro tennis is definitely on the horizon when she's able to turn pro down the road. So I just want to keep helping anybody, anytime, anywhere. And the way I feel, I just want to keep getting better.
Rick, first of all, Rick, I want to thank the gods of rain for allowing me to steal this Rick Macci time, because it's a lot of time. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
On behalf of Florida Tennis, on behalf of the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network, Rick, thank you so much for taking your time, making this one of my all-time greatest interviews I've ever enjoyed. Rick, have a great day. There's only one way to end this interview, Rick, and you know what it's going to be. Bang!
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 And one more thing.
Sure.
We're gonna do this again.
Oh, I hope so. It was unbelievable, Rick. Thank you.